Welcome back. Well, yes, indeed, continuing our focus on what lots of people are focusing on in terms of the speech given by the president. There's that talk about the asset declaration and the directive, all summed up in that speech. Well, Dr. Mande Samala joins us today. He's a policy analyst, also of the Academy business manager of Academy of Management in Nigeria. Thank you for coming on today. Well, taking a look at that speech, first and foremost, you're also in communication. Lots of interpretations have been given to that particular speech, while some, of course, everyone can't be on the same page on that particular speech. What were your impressions when you heard it?
Well, good morning, viewers. And I want to say that the speech by President Muhammad Buhari, that is the inaugural speech. The inaugural speech is a speech that I will consider as a speech for a new dawn. I say that because if you look at it critically, it is indeed lucid and indeed captivating towards giving a brief focus that was supposed to be. The speech is about a broad vision. People will have different dimensions to the whole thing, but I want all of us to look at it critically, that from the beginning of the speech, you see sense of humility, you see sense of passion for leadership, and you see readiness towards delivering the dividends of democracy. And I want to tell you clearly that all that is there in the speech is something that was highly, indeed organized in such a way that the presentation or the speech is something that Nigerians should now wake up to the new development. It's a new movement. It is no longer going to be business as usual. As a matter of fact, if you look at it critically, an aspect of the statement where he talks about, okay, I am for everybody, and I'm indeed not for nobody.
What did you understand by that?
It's clear. He is for Nigerians, and he's not for a particular sectional interest or for a particular individual. So what that means is that leadership is a situation whereby we're used to people talking about it was through me that I came to power, he was the one that supported me or whatever, is no longer there. But rather, I am for you people Nigerians, and I'm not for any individual or a sectional interest or a regional interest. Gone are the days where we have regional interest, sectional interest, or the concept of godfatherism. What we now have today is that I'm for you. And if I'm for you, both for those, in fact, if you look at it critically in the speech, even for those who did not vote for us, we knew very well that your action and activities towards the election was indeed competitive. And because of your own action or inaction towards that thing, was something that gave us the high level of competitiveness. And that is highly commendable, and that will strengthen our own democratic practice in Nigeria. It's quite clear about that, so it's not something for us to say much on it. And I think that these are part of the attributes of a distinguished leader. A leader that is out to, in other words, lead the society, to make sure that he is not for any parochial interest, but rather the interest for the generality of the society.
But the expectation, it was huge, it's still huge, and perhaps based on that, they just thought that maybe that speech, they expected different things based on how they had internalized the campaign promises during the elections. But how do you see him handling some of the challenges that exist in the country? For instance, in that same speech, now that we're faced with this security challenge now, Boko Haram have, how many times now ever since the inauguration, he also did direct that the command center be moved to Maiduguri, where so that they can have a proper hand. Today, they'll be jetting out to Chad, Niger, to meet with those presidents. Do you see him having properly compartmentalizing some of these challenges and tackling them head on successfully too?
Yes, I see that with all intents of purposes. But one thing we all have to try as much as we can to take into consideration, this era we are today is the era of change. And what is expected is that this change is not him as an individual that will succeed. We all have to work together towards achieving this. There are so many challenges, like you rightly mentioned, the security, the power, education, and so many sectors that you talked about now. It is not easy, but I want you to understand critically that if you look at the speech, the broad vision of the speech try as much as they can to catalog some of these challenges. But the most important, and what I'm beginning to observe, Nigerians, we are in a rush. We are in a rush.
What's wrong in that?
I mean, there is nothing wrong in that, but the most important thing is that you see, even in basic elementary management, you have to plan. So in other words, you have what you are going to do in the first phase, you know what you are going to do in the second phase.
Let me bring up
you know what you are going to do in the third phase.
I think you're quite on point. A moment to start the button there so that you can factor this in. When we talk about planning, some have argued that this is not the first time President Muhammadu Buhari is contesting for elections. It's not the second, it's not the third. In fact, it's fourth, and he's lucky this time. By now, they expect that he should have a blueprint of what he expects to do for the nation. So when you say, well, we shouldn't, or we should be a bit patient, Nigerians are saying, no, wait a minute, you have all the time. In fact, after victory, he had 2 months to prepare for this moment, and they're not truly, quite excited at the pace of his activities since Monday.
Thank you so much. If I may ask you, when you said that they're not quite at peace with, when did he come to power? As far as I'm concerned, it is the beginning of his working week is this week that we are. So, but you need to understand that past administration, there are some people who stayed for 6 months, even before constituting their own ministers. I just want you to look at this thing critically. There were also democratically elected leaders and all that. But they stayed for 6 months before even constituting their own ministers. But we all have to try as much as we can to be patient. Change is not something that can come in abrupt. If you embark on abrupt change, you are leading to chaos. And because we are talking about this thing, change is not something so okay. It's not just saying the slogan, change, 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 change. It is something that has to do with an individual self. You as an individual have to change. Your family have to change. The community have to change. The state have to change. The nation has to change. And this change we are talking about has to do with so many things.
The question
our moral behavior, the way we conduct ourselves and all this matters a lot. For example, as a public servant, it is your responsibility to be in the office at 8 o'clock. But a situation whereby a public servant arrives the office at 9 p.m. and then in the area of registration, he now registers, he came to the office at 9 a.m. and he now ends up writing 7:59. That is part of the problem we are having in our society. So this change we are talking about has to do with attitudinal change. Attitudinal change. And this attitudinal change is something that you are ready to do the right thing and you should work towards doing it.
You think Nigerians are ready for that?
You see, we are ready for that. Because if you say you're not ready for that, then we'll continue to be in chaos. You have to ask yourself, look at when, for example, when this man was in power. I remember then I was in secondary school. But if there is anything then, there is discipline. The idea of even going to litter things left and right wasn't there. But I want you to look at it. It is in this very station that I remember a member of the National Assembly said that immediately the man was declared, the level of corruption in Nigeria dropped down to 30%. And so that's to tell you, why is this so? In other words, it is like a messiah has come to change the situation and all that. So all we have to try as much as we can, as an individual, what are we doing towards imbibing this principle that we are in now? So for example, in my work environment, I have to try as much as I can to make sure that yes, whatever I earn it effectively based on my contribution to the system. And that is what is expected. If you are supposed to be in the office at the right time, try as much as you can to be in the office at the right time. And because these are the little things that causes problems that we are talking about.
Do you agree, sorry to comment, do you agree with those of his followers who say one area he's not changed, that he should have been able to make a mark for himself, was in the act of declaring his assets publicly?
Well, thank you very much. I understand that. But look at it critically. Constitutionally, he has done what he's supposed to do. He has already done that through the Code of Conduct Bureau and all that. So he has done that because it is there that as a public officer, at the beginning of you coming to power and after leaving power, whatever, you are supposed to declare your asset. And he has done that. But maybe what they are talking about now is that the public declaration for everybody to see. And I want want all of us to understand that this is a constitutional matter. And I want to believe that the president is a law-abiding president. And so if it is something that within our constitution there will be such amendment, that will be done effectively. But the truth of the matter is that what we have in the constitution, what we have in the constitution is to make sure that yes, your assets are publicly, declared through the Code of Conduct Bureau and all that.
All right, let's take you through some of this because former President, President Jonathan, also spoke about this. Remember that statement he made where Nigerians felt they were not exactly happy with what he said. So we'll let you listen to it, and then we'll bring another perspective. Let's take a listen.
The issue of asset declarations is a matter of principle. And I say it and I don't give a damn about it. Even if you criticize me from heaven. When I was the vice president, that matter came. When I told the late president, so unfortunately it's late, I said, look, let us not start something just because we play into the hands of some people and create an anomalous situation in the country. The law is clear. A public officer, you declare assets. When you declare your assets, if there are issues, the relevant agencies have a basis to assess whether you have amassed wealth wrongly or not. When he insists, people must begin to publish. It's not only Mr. President or the Vice President. Everybody, including ministers. A minister, in my point, may marry a top businessman, maybe, who probably does not want his assets to be declared. That means that if somebody wants to use her as a minister, you cannot. Because the law says that if it is a woman, all the assets of the husband will be declared because you can use the husband. If it's a wife, the assets of your wife will be declared, except your wife is in a well-paid. So I said that, look, let us not play into the hands. I had not. In fact, people thought that I said, look, I was, the sequence of Bayelsa State. I was investigated thoroughly even as a deputy governor. I was a governor for about one year, then the issue of becoming a vice president came up. I had nothing to hide. But because I was under somebody else and it was becoming an issue because of the media, my boss, then the president has declared. The vice president has not. So it's becoming an issue. So I declared. It's not because I wanted to. Initially I said that if they can write, Channel can talk about that from morning to night. The IT can talk about that from morning to night. All the papers, all the social media can talk about it. It's a matter of principle. That is not proper. It's not proper. If you go and amend the law and say only the president of Nigeria and the vice president should declare assets publicly, fine. But presently, everybody who is holding the political office, yes, you may start with the president. Yes, the vice president. Of course, it will go on, the Senate president, the speaker, the deputies, all members of National Assembly, all ministers, because they will continue to climb one after the other. And I say it's not right.